I ultimately erased every last piece of my landlord's precious digital art and left her in a state of pure, helpless rage. And it all started with a simple search for a room on Craigslist. I was in a strange limbo, waiting for my start date to join the military. The timeline was vague. They said it would be at least a month, but no more than a year. My apartment lease had just expired, and with no option for month-to-month payments, I found myself in need of short-term housing. I was a pretty ideal tenant, single, quiet, with 2 part-time jobs and cash and savings. My needs were simple, so I turned to Craigslist. That's how I met the woman I'll call Chloe. She was in her 20s, single, and came from a wealthy family who had bought her a small 3-bedroom house, a nice car, and paid all her bills. Chloe didn't have a traditional job. She claimed she sold her art. In reality, she spent her days creating awful graphic art, mostly fan fiction, on her computer. I doubt she ever sold a single piece, but she was utterly obsessed with her own work and would talk about it constantly. Then there were the pets. So many pets. The house was a chaotic menagerie of about 20 cats, 4 dogs, a room filled with uncaged birds, and multiple aquariums. As one person later commented online when I shared this story, this should have been a big, fat, red flag. Despite her skewed version of reality, Chloe seemed nice enough at first. The room was available, the price was right, and the deal was simple. I'd pay a flat rate for rent and utilities and provide my own food. We never signed a formal lease. All the details were handled through text and email. I even brought a benefit to the arrangement. I had my cable internet connection transferred to her house, setting up my own modem and wireless router which I let her use for free. Having some carpentry experience, I also helped her repair door frames, fix wood trim, and patch some drywall, never asking for anything in return. The first week was perfectly fine. Then, things fell apart with stunning speed. Chloe became manipulative and started making new financial demands. Chloe made her first move, completely unaware that this pattern of petty extortion would set in motion a response she could never have anticipated. First, the electric bill was suddenly too high, and I needed to pay my part. Then, she bought groceries for both of us without asking, and when the milk soured and the bread molded, she demanded I pay for the wasted groceries. An old, busted doorknob on a side door broke off in my hand while I was taking out the trash, and suddenly it was my responsibility to buy a new one. Individually, these were minor annoyances, but the pattern was clear. Within a few weeks, my living expenses had tripled the amount we'd agreed upon. I put my foot down. I told her I would pay the flat rate we agreed on and buy my own food. Period. That seemed to settle things. For about a week, I came home from work one day and went to my room. My guitar was gone. In its place was a bill. It was from a plumber for the installation of a new toilet in my bathroom. According to Chloe, she had lost all trust that I would meet my financial obligations after I had freaked out about money before. This revealed Chloe's greatest fatal flaw, her absolute conviction, born from a life of privilege, that she could take whatever she wanted without consequence. My $100 pawnshop guitar was now being held hostage, locked in her bedroom, until I paid for her brand new toilet. She had literally installed a new padlock on her bedroom door. That was it. It was time to get out. A friend had already offered me his guest room, so I told her I was moving out the next day. She could keep the cheap guitar. I wasn't going to pay to fix her house anymore. As I was packing, the conversation turned to the modem. She was now taking an online class, thanks to the internet connection I'd provided. She promised she would get her own connection in a few days. I was angry, but not yet vengeful, so I agreed to let her use my equipment until my service was transferred to my friend's place. A week later, the day before the scheduled transfer, I called her to coordinate. She said she would drop off the modem and router, but oddly insisted she could only do it while I was at work. I sent a reminder text, "Please don't forget to drop off modem." She replied, "Left it in a bag outside your front door." It was weird, but I let it go. I got home that night. No bag, no modem. I texted her, "Did you leave it at the right house? Can't find it." Her only response was, "Yes." The cable company was coming the next day, and I would be charged if I didn't turn in the old equipment. She had extorted money from me. I had been nothing but helpful. She had stolen my property, and now she was lying and stealing more, which was going to cost me even more money. The anger had simmered long enough. Now, I was vengeful. I knew Chloe took a pottery class every Thursday, leaving her out of the house for 2 hours. Her front door used a combination keypad instead of a key. She had claimed she would change the code after I left, but I gambled that she was too lazy or didn't know how. On Thursday, I waited until after she would have left for class, then did a slow drive-by. No car, no lights. The coast was clear. I parked a block away, walked to the front door, and took a breath. I entered the old code. Click. The lock disengaged. It still worked. I went straight to her bedroom. The new padlock was gone. And there, sitting on her floor, was my modem, my router, and my guitar, the very items that were supposedly in a bag in the bushes outside my friend's house. I grabbed my modem and router. I grabbed my guitar. Then, I saw her computer. An idea, cold and precise, formed in my mind. I opened my backpack and pulled out an old, burned admin copy of Windows 98 I kept for emergencies. She had always complained about her Vista operating system anyway. I slipped the disk into her CD-ROM drive, rebooted the machine, and entered the BIOS to set it to boot from the CD. The old, familiar blue screen appeared, asking if I wanted to format the hard drive. I selected yes. The progress bar began its slow, deliberate crawl across the screen, wiping her hard drive clean. Her art, her homework, all of it gone. She could finish the Windows 98 installation herself later. I was back in my car within 5 minutes and at my friend's place 10 minutes later. Chloe's pottery class still had another hour to go. I picked up my phone and sent her a text. Finally found the modem. Bag must have blown into the bushes. Thanks for dropping it off. Laughing face. I can only imagine the flurry of emotions that message must have sparked. About 30 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Chloe, in a frantic rage. You stole from me, she screamed. What, Chloe? What are you talking about? I asked calmly. You broke into my house and stole from me. Wait, someone broke into the house? I feigned concern. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that. What did they take? It was a remarkable display of psychological gymnastics. For her accusation to make any sense at all, she would first have to admit that she had lied about returning my things and had, in fact, stolen them herself. She walked right up to that ledge and then did a spectacular backflip away from reality. She couldn't do it. Her story was not compatible with the truth. All she could do was spew empty threats and incoherent rage. That phone call was the last time I ever heard from her. The money and the items involved were worth less to me than the simple fact that she was consumed by a rage she could do nothing about. It brought me a little joy. The strangest part? She never once mentioned her computer. Looking back now, roughly 10 years later, it's a mixed bag of feelings. I don't regret taking back what was mine for a single second, but destroying something that someone else loved, even someone I despised, doesn't feel entirely great after all this time. Even now, I can see why some might think the Win 98 install was a little far, that it was, as one person put it, just scary. It's a funny story to tell, but that specific part led to a lot of soul-searching, and it's a piece of the story I look back on with regret. In the end, this story shows that while forgiveness is a virtue, there are times when the only effective response to a manipulator is to reclaim what is yours and ensure they can never take advantage of you again. So, I'll ask you, what would you have done in my shoes? And where do you draw the line between justice and revenge?